In Alex Jones' 2005 film, Martial Law 9/11 Rise of the Police State, Alex Jones would attend the protests and the actual event of the Republican National Convention in 2004, where George Bush would be nominated for the candidacy to run for president.
In the early years of the 21st century, terrorism was used by governments across the world as a pretext to scare their populations into submission. Life became a surveillance grid nightmare, with every individual's actions ruthlessly catalogued and recorded by the state. Secret arrests, checkpoints, and warrantless searches spread. The final incremental march of the police state, culminating in open martial law. This is the story of how the elite sold their people into slavery and scared the once proud and brave people of the West into submitting to being cannon fodder in wars for world domination.
Our enemies have made clear the danger they pose to our security.
We're just right outside the security perimeter at this national security event in New York City, just a few hundred yards away from Madison Square Garden, where at least 10,000 police are stationed, supposedly providing security for the Republican National Convention and all the delegates and media that are going to be here.
Sadly, we live in a world where, for the foreseeable future, you're going to have to provide security all the time.
Who do you work for? Well, you need to tell us. I mean, this is a free country. Officer, can you tell me this guy's badge number? Secret police just covers his badge up? Secret police in America.
This is what's called ambush journalism, and I disrespect you for that as well. So thank you and goodbye.
In the ritual?
It's none of your damn business.
We're also going to be talking to the protesters and finding out if the protesters are discussing real issues or if it's more of this phony left-right paradigm.
On Monday, that Zogby poll was released that showed 50% of New York City residents believe the government had foreknowledge and made a conscious decision not to intervene. 50% of the people who live in New York believe that.
Both candidates are cousins. They're skull and bones. They're bringing in big government and tyranny. The evidence is clear. The military-industrial complex was intimately involved in 9/11.
Many of the nearly 2,000 protesters arrested over the past few days have been taken to an old bus depot on Manhattan's west side.
We should call this facility what it is, and it's a concentration camp. It's the Pier 57 concentration camp.
Oh, yeah, folks. We're in the middle of it now.
Stop exploiting the 9/11 tragedy!
Ladies and gentlemen, here is your Fuji-sponsored surveillance blimp.
Rollback of our civil liberties, just like them telling us we can't stand on the sidewalk here. Yeah, we can. We went to court and we can.
The Republicans are here and taking advantage of the 3,000 people that died right behind me for their own selfish politics, and it's very sad.
He is a man of perseverance. He is a man of inner strength. He is a leader who doesn't flinch, who doesn't waver, who does not back down.
On September 11th, America was attacked. Suddenly, on September 12th, according to John Ashcroft and George Bush, 270 million Americans became the suspects.
Hey, Michael, why don't you talk about NORAD standing down? Why don't you talk about NORAD standing down, Michael? Why not the really hardcore 9/11 issues? My friend, this is totally surreal. I'm in the middle of police, machine guns, high-tech sound weapons that are being used in Iraq. And the would-be dictator is on the radio. I'm in the middle of New York City. It's a hellhole of surveillance and police state. And the Bill of Rights being torched, being destroyed.
If you're here at 11:35, they will arrest you.
We traveled to New York to see the elite in action. but what we chronicled shook us to our very core. We were witnesses to the elite's ideology, to their mindset, their vision, their philosophy, and the martial law system that they are constructing, not just for the American people, but the population of the world. We're just right outside the security perimeter at this national security event in New York City, just a few hundred yards away from Madison Square Garden, where in just a few hours they'll be starting up the official coronation, Skull and Bones coronation part 2 for John Kerry's cousin, George W. Bush, right here in New York City. We'll chronicle the police state, the surveillance blimps, the sound wave cannons, and we'll discuss 9/11 with New Yorkers by traveling to Ground Zero and find out how many of them are questioning the official story that has holes in it that you can fly a 747 through. You were saying that a lot of people aren't on the street now. What percentage of New Yorkers have left town?
Maybe about 50.
50% have left? Are New Yorkers happy about the RNC coming to town?
They don't.
They're not happy? Sir, what percentage of New Yorkers like Bush and like the convention being here?
I think about 10%.
What does the other 90% think?
They left city.
Everybody here. Everybody's gone? How many, like 10% of the city's left? Half the city, what would you say is left?
80%.
80% has left? We'd been in New York about an hour before we were threatened with arrest for having our video cameras in the subway.
Any one of them. May I ask you what you're doing, sir?
Okay, will you tell me again so I know what to do?
I'm not telling you what to do.
No, ma'am.
That's all I am telling you is that you got cops climbing out of... Okay, you have a convention and you have a terror alert in this city. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, tell me so I know what to do.
I don't know what you should do. Have a nice time.
Okay,
you want 34th Street. Okay, any train here will take you to 34th Street.
Alex Jones would then talk to the communist youth organization that was protesting the RNC. Enjoy.
Love being a puppet for the New World Order. They will be my slaves. I am the mini-me of Lord Bush. Oh, it feels so good. I'm enslaving them and destroying the Bill of Rights. Oh, it's so powerful. I will soon rule everything. Oh, yes.
We've been talking to a lot of the protesters, and most of them say, Bush bad, Kerry good. The problem is Bush and Kerry are cousins. Kerry's for the war. And one of the few signs that we've seen that is exposing that both of them work for the same people and are part of a false choice is this communist revolution sign. But you know, I go back to 1958 when Eisenhower called Fidel Castro the Abraham Lincoln of Latin America. And so the problem is that it was actually the big central banks at the turn of the last century that created communism as a way to try to con the serfs back into serfdom. So again, another false choice is what we have here. Bush-Kerry equals more war. I agree. They're corporate fascists. It's all true. But then the corporate fascists have funded this as their counter-revolution control valve. This is the true complexity that we're facing. And until we figure that out, we're going to lose all our freedoms, and they're going to keep winning. How you doing, ma'am? Hey, I like the top part of your sign. I agree they're all controlled. Are you a communist?
No way.
But it says communist revolution.
I really don't want to
stop bothering this lady. What are you worried about?
What am I? I'm not.
What did you say? I didn't hear you. How can you say that?
How can I say what?
Very nasty what you just said. Did you hear what he just said? Did you hear what this guy just said? He said something terribly nasty.
That stuff doesn't work.
You know, I don't know.
This is in the 60s. Look, he's trying to agitate.
This is not going to happen.
This doesn't work.
This is not the 60s. Don't happen anymore. We're living in the
What I'm saying is, I'm saying
I don't know what you said, but I heard
communism.
on the side.
Communism. You work for the U.S. government, don't you?
This guy said over here, this guy's nasty. Boy, he is nasty. You are nasty.
I said that the communists work for the big banks.
Oh, the big banks. This man is from the big banks. He's from Chase Manhattan.
See this? He isn't interested in information. He's actually interested in putting out this info.
Chase Manhattan and Citibank. And Citibank and Chase Manhattan are part of capitalism.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is the communists for you. All disinfo, all propaganda.
It's all part of capitalism. all part of capitalism, isn't it? You're a capitalist. You're a capitalist. You're a capitalist.
The U.S. government admits they put Mao in.
Capitalist.
U.S. government admits they put Mao in.
Capitalist. You're a capitalist, are you? How much money do you have on you if you're a capitalist? Free markets? What does that mean?
You're capitalist masters.
What does a free market mean? What's a free market? How long have you been a person? How long have you been a jerk? Right. How long have you been a jerk? How long have you been a jerk? How long have you been a jerk? How long have you been a jerk?
Do what, me?
Grow up.
Who should?
You should, asshole. Grow up.
No, I mean, I'm trying to find out. I agree with the top.
Trying to find anything. I'm trying to be a disruptive jerk. Why don't you grow up and get out of here, please?
Bush carry equals more war. I agree with that.
Thank you. Good.
But what I'm saying is that the communists were actually at the beginning funded by the same people. It's all consolidation. That's all I'm saying.
Good. Thank you.
So you guys don't care about facts. It's all just disinfo.
Good. Thank you. Yeah. Sounds good to me. Right.
So you don't care that Stalin killed 50 million people?
So, yeah. So go ahead. So what else?
So you don't care?
So who are you? Kill. How many people did you kill?
No one.
But your ideas killed millions and millions and millions. Capitalism.
No,
you're a capitalist. You're a pro-capitalist.
Hands for blood, right?
She wishes we were dead, right there.
This is the one?
She's the one walking around saying she wishes we were dead.
Replay it for yourself. She clearly says that too bad Stalin didn't kill us. So we see these communists down here who say Bush, Kerry both equal war. And we go, yeah, we agree with you. But why are you for communism? Because communism actually, as Professor Carol Quigley at Georgetown, Bill Clinton's mentor, said, was a creation of the big banks to centralize governments and con the people into a movement for the population that was really for the establishment. And they began to threaten to want to kill us. Some of it we got on tape, some of it we didn't. Hey, guys, how's it going? Tell us what you think about this.
We're members of the Revolutionary Communist Youth Brigade.
Tell us what you believe in.
That's it, man. If you want to talk to us, you got to talk to us.
You got to talk to Stalin, in other words. If you want to connect an interview, we can hook you up with our spokesperson.
You're not allowed to talk yourself?
If you want an interview, you should talk to the spokesperson. Well, have fun.
So your leaders don't let you talk yourselves?
They've never been to the Soviet Union, Poland, or anywhere in the Eastern Bloc. Look at them. They're like 18 and 20. Come on.
And you got these old... Who's that?
Why don't you talk to some mainstream Americans?
I'm talking to everybody.
Okay. Okay, we know where you're coming from. You're looking to
no,
to make people in Lima.
No, sir. We're not mainstream media. We're actually trying to just make a documentary about all the different views that are at the convention. And everybody's been real nice to us, but communists, they always flip out when we try to talk to them. So now it is becoming an issue with them because they're so ridiculous.
Documentary on all views. You're very biased. Probably work for Fox.
I've exposed George Bush for carrying out 9/11. I've exposed Bill Clinton. They all work for the globalists. And the globalists funded you little people. You guys need to wake up. Sir, a lot of New Yorkers have said, and the polls show 80% don't want Bush to have the convention here, but they're doing it. And some people say that he's being opportunistic, trying to associate himself with 9/11.
Oh, I disagree entirely. I think this is the perfect venue for Bush and the RNC to hold this event. I mean, New York City is a world capital place, big focus in New York from the rest of America, and I think it's a perfect venue irrespective of your party leanings.
Have you seen any of the protesters while you've been in town, and what do you think of them if you have?
Well, we've seen a few of them. Mostly, of course, they're kept away from the delegates. But to me, they're not New Yorkers. There's people that have come in and are trying to make New Yorkers look bad. They're a bunch of young kids. I'm wondering how many of those that are out there protesting, one, know what they're voting about, what they're protesting about, and two, are they going to even vote when it comes to the line?
A lot of them are good people and have some legitimate issues, and I've seen people who aren't doing anything, whole streets just scooped up and arrested, and then they brought them out to the dock out there in an old condemned building with asbestos, it's admitted, and have 2,000 of them in there, no air conditioning and cages inside a kind of a Guantanamo camp.
Well, I don't know of any of those issues and facts. If you're going to protest and there's a lot of security, this is just not the way to do it. Protest in another venue other than this. I firmly believe in the right to protest, but this is just not a good place to do it. We've had too much problems in this city to bring more problems to this city.
September 11th for a reason as a setting point.
This nation was scared to death when those towers went down.
The term for it, it's called waving the bloody shirt.
I thought it was manipulative.
Get people, appealing to people's emotions rather than their reason.
I think they took advantage of a bad situation.
So why are you out here?
I'm from California and helping your documentary. We're here to protest the protesters. We're here to tell them they're just a bunch of leftist ingrates who are taking advantage of living in America. America is free because people have bled for this country, and we want a strong America, much like we want a strong police department, or we're going to have thugs ruling the streets. We want a strong police, which keeps it safe. We want a strong military, which keeps a good country. Yeah, the same Bible that the president is going to put his hand on that says no same-sex marriage.
The protests would go on late into the night, and Alex Jones would finally go to the RNC building.
We're on our way to a protest that's unauthorized, not permitted. They've been arresting people by the thousands, and we're going to cover it. Of all the hundreds of huge protests we've seen, a small group broke off with a unpermitted march and is moving down towards Madison Square Garden, or MSG as New Yorkers call it. Now notice as we walk here that the roads have all been pinned conveniently ahead of the march. So tourists, anybody that's in here, to be arrested, and we are now inside the pins. And look at them hurting us. Look at their cars hurting us. I wonder if it'll be like Monday night. I wonder if they'll run horses and mopeds into us.
11:35. If you're here at 11:35, they will arrest you.
But I'm sorry.
They're hardly letting people out. They're opening up the pens a little inch to let people slowly trickle out. And now we're getting in trouble for letting y'all know.
Well, that little story about how they're going to arrest people really worked. Look, everybody's leaving. Police then went in with barricades and broke the protest up into 4 different blocks and randomly arrested innocent people. It was the same story over and over and over again, and police brutality was completely out of control. Reporters for Reuters, the Associated Press, student reporters, tourists, even an American Spectator reporter was arrested and taken to Pier 57. Look around you. Prison is being built. A high-tech, cashless society control grid. We're now going to explore the ruling elite in the world today and what their driving ideology and philosophies are. We'll also look at their minions, the people that slavishly serve them.
Tragedy!
Well, here we are all the way from Austin, Texas, covering the Republican National Convention. What we're seeing here is Skull and Bones coronation number 2. Well, down here you can see the CNN staff, Bush Light. They love the president, put out all the propaganda. They also worship Kerry. So does Fox News when it comes to worshiping Bush. So here's the so-called mainstream media you can trust, which is nothing more than basically a CIA front to propagandize and manipulate the people. But it's all in a slick packaging with a great, impressive background, and that's what people respond to. You know what? I bet most of those so-called Texans down there from that Texas delegation aren't even first-generation Texans. They're just as phony as George W. Bush is. A guy who is from Kennebunkport, Maine, whose daddy speaks with a perfect Atlantic accent. People who were Tories back in the Revolutionary War, they came down carpetbagging to Texas when George was a little boy, and now so many Texans and phony Texans have been sucked in by this and just love the whole motif. But again, it's form over substance. It's the packaging. Yeah, I'm a slave. I'm happy about it. I'm proud of it. I've decided to just join the New World Order. I've decided to just go along with it and have a good time. The media has really been covering Skull and Bones lately, how Bush and Kerry are both members. Are you aware of that organization?
I am not.
Does it concern you that they both were in the same fraternity in college and just 2 years apart?
No, it does not.
Just one hell of a coincidence that 15 members each year out of 290 million people and the two presidential candidates are Skull and Bones.
I would say that's a coincidence. I would say that's a coincidence.
Yeah. What do you think about Bush and Kerry being cousins and members of Skull and Bones?
Excuse me?
Did you know Bush and Kerry were cousins?
Kissing cousins or what?
They really are cousins.
They really are.
There's only 15 members of Skull and Bones each year out of 290 million Americans, and both of them are Skull and Bones. Certainly you're aware of that.
Oh, well, why wouldn't you be? Talk to Bill O'Reilly. He'd have that answer. I know he would.
Well, but I'm not talking to Bill O'Reilly. What do you think?
Yeah.
We need to talk about it. I mean, him and Kerry are cousins. They are members of Skull and Bones.
The question is, would he be a Skull and Bones guy today? I mean, you know, people do crazy things when they're young.
Well, his dad was a Skull and Bones, and his dad. It's in politicians' autobiographies. You know, it's in the encyclopedia. And it was called the Illuminati.
I remember reading about the Illuminati in the 60s, late 60s, when Hal Lindsey came out with a book, The Late Great Planet Earth, and everybody's going to get raptured and go to, you know, and so kids were walking around talking about that theory, and then the Illuminati book came out, or a number of them came out, and it was one world government, one world money system, one world religion.
That's all coming now.
Oh, it is.
Conspiracy theories never work. I mean, look at...
Well, every time I bring it up, somebody says, oh, you think it's a conspiracy. No, it's a real group. I want to know what you think.
We got into not a debate, but a gal who is a real confirmed Republican. She married a real liberal guy, and the next thing you know, we have her over for dinner, and I hate Bush. And I said, whoa, where'd all that come from? And she got right down to... you know, all the things of all the presidents being involved in this society, all Masons, and that was her whole base. And I hate Bush, and I said,
well, then how could she hate Bush? Because Kerry's a member.
Well, yeah, that's a good question.
A lot of people aren't going to know what Skull and... I don't really know what it is. I know he was a member of it. It's some secret society, and
it's so secret I can't talk about it.
Yeah. By the way, you better watch yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because if there's anything to it, you're a marked man.
You guys have a good night.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're in the right place to be safe.
Alex would finish off the film by traveling to the UN headquarters, where he would discuss the UN and their involvement and their connections to George Bush, 9/11, John Kerry, and all the rest. He would then finish off the film by discussing the results of the election and how they might affect our lives.
The United Nations was founded right here in the United States in 1945 at the end of World War II. It was set up at the Presidio in San Francisco by our military-industrial complex. The Rockefellers put up the money to build Rockefeller Center and to also give them the land for the United Nations. So this whole area is New World Order funded and controlled. And basically it's a debating club to make the third world think that they have authority and to think that they're part of the power process. But really the G8 or the G8 nations control the United Nations through the Security Council. We hear the reports all the time. They're in the news where some UN bureaucrat runs over somebody when they're drunk driving in New York or Washington, D.C., and nothing can happen to them. But it gets a lot worse than that. The United Nations has been caught hundreds of times running giant sex rings with kidnapped women and children out of Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East. It's a huge business. And right here in New York, they routinely catch these UN officials and even low-level bureaucrats with their own house slaves. Many times it'll be some UN delegate from Asia. He's got some kidnapped little girl from Russia. So these are the people in here telling you that world government's good and that they need to run your life. And you look at the UN's Charter and Declaration of Human Rights, it says you don't have any rights. It says the UN is the absolute arbiter and authority. And now we see our own government adopting the UN model of governance. The United Nations believes that private property should be in their hands, controlled by them. And when it comes to self-defense, back in 2000 at a UN meeting held here, their organization UNIDIR called for all civilian firearms to be confiscated. In fact, they stated that civilian ownership of firearms threatens the legitimate power monopoly of the state. Now, what's a power monopoly of the state? That's a dictatorship or martial law. And they strive to have governments have the monopoly of power over the people. Remember who was for gun control? Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Fidel Castro. In every case, if a government tries to disarm you, it's tyrannical. Black Americans couldn't own a gun. Native Americans had their firearms confiscated. Roman slaves 2,000 years ago couldn't own a sword or even a knife. Being disarmed is one of the key hallmarks of a society that's enslaved to its government. A pile of fake signs meant to look like they were individually made. Getting slick here. Republicans do that too. See, this is a UN operation. This is a UN operation, so look how it's all meant to look like it's individuals. Imagine what would happen if these tens of thousands of people were truly informed about the nature of the geopolitical system. Imagine if they saw the big picture and understood that the UN is controlled by the same people that run George W. Bush. But they're all here beneath the United Nations, calling for it to be the global authority, and that somehow all of the ills in our government are caused by national sovereignty. When that's not the case, my friends. The people destroying America are the very people that created the United Nations. It is nothing more than a rubber stamp, a front group of the military-industrial complex, of the New World Order. Year after year, the peace activists come out in an ineffective move criticizing Republicans, but it's impossible for them to ever criticize Democrats, who are, as the cliche goes, two sides of the same coin. Democrats and liberals, progressives, socialists, communists, whatever you want to call them, can see the corruption of the Republican Party, which is there for anybody to see. It's horrible. But they can't see the corruption of the United Nations that had thousands and thousands of Indians murdered in Burma just a few years ago to make room for United Nations UNESCO land sanctuary. These guys can see the corruption of the big oil companies, but they don't want to see the document showing that the big oil companies put up the money to found the United Nations so they could control this growing world government body way back in the mid-1940s. You know, we've got the documents where Dr. Henry Kissinger, back in 1973, told the most populated 5 third world nations that they had to sterilize forcibly half their women or they wouldn't get IMF and World Bank funding. And the United Nations certified that plan with the IMF and World Bank and helped carry that out. The UN's been caught being involved in sterilization programs in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa. And the last 6 years, 2 separate cases in Asia and Africa, the UN has been caught in massive vaccine programs, tainting them with a very expensive synthetic hormone. They bind it to the tetanus pathogen, give it to women. It's a program only for women because it wouldn't hurt men, and it then permanently sterilizes the women. Now, how is that loving and good? Well, you see, the United Nations thinks that population control is a good thing, both physically with the police state, but also stopping people's reproductive rights, sterilizing them. The UN has put out dozens of public documents where they're calling for an 80% world population reduction. In fact, at the Beijing Women's Conference, the World Conference, back in 1997, the head of the UN Food Program said, "We will use food as a weapon against the people, and we do not apologize about it." And they also gave China awards for their horribly vicious one-child policy. And now you've got 35 million more men in China than you have women. It's causing a societal breakdown. Even the communist Chinese are backing off that policy, and the UN has been urging them not to. Most of these people here are well-meaning good folks, just like most of the idiots at the Republican National Convention are. They can't see evil. They can't name evil. They can't face up to what it is. The facts are a bunch of Malthusian, social Darwinist, same people that funded the Nazis, set up the UN to con good liberal-minded people into being part of this system. That's all this is something to co-opt the population and to enslave the population and to misdirect people into thinking that they have a real escape from the fascism of the Republican Party and other right-wing command and control dictatorships around the planet. Well, President George W. Bush has won the election, and the elites got their man back in place. President Bush, of course, has been great for the elite because he's neutralized so many millions of conservatives who believe that he actually follows conservative policies, whereas in truth he's for open borders, gun control, signing on to UNESCO and the United Nations, the growth in government in his first term, double the growth rate under Bill Clinton. But because he is a supposed conservative, he is a key Trojan horse for the elite to actually bring down our national sovereignty and set up a domestic police state unit, just like we saw in Nazi Germany or communist Russia. And make no mistake, that's exactly what Homeland Security and the new domestic CIA director are doing, is turning America into a martial law nightmare.
Alex Jones would have many famous rants in his lifetime, but in the next episode will be one of his most infamous. The one that brought the theory to the foreground. The theory that these people are demonic.